Hey everybody, this is Hunter from TEQ Customs. Today we are going to do a pretty substantial test of a lot of different headlight options out there for Toyotas primarily, but this is also going to apply to a bunch of different vehicles, as a lot of these manufacturers, ourselves included, use the same parts across different headlights. So to start with, I'll go over what we have here on the table. So we have a bunch of different TEQ headlight options. We have some LX470 headlights that are going to be one main projector and then the multi-high beam projector. We've got that multi-high beam in white and amber as well to show the difference. We have a set of headlights with the standard TEQ BiLED projector in it, and then we've got a set that has the Tri-Pro LED projector from TEQ Customs as well in it. We have a set of quad projector headlights from TEQ Customs. So these are going to have 2 low beams, 2 high beams per headlight. We also have just a factory headlight with a halogen bulb in it. This is going to be our baseline for the testing, so you can see just what a factory headlight is going to look like. This headlight in particular is from Tundra and Sequoia. But that's going to be our baseline for the testing. We also have a Morimoto D2S projector and a Morimoto HID system to test. We have these LED bulbs from Colite. These have become more popular. They have a little tiny projector at the end of them. So rather than just going in like a normal LED bulb that just emits light out of the 2 LED chips on the side, it is aimed a little bit and produces less glare than if you were to just throw that LED bulb in a factory housing, which we will be testing as well, just to demonstrate that it's not a great option and it blinds everybody. So please don't do that. We also have a Baja Designs DOT LP6, a set of Alpharexx Luxx and Nova headlights, and then we also have a set of Morimoto XB Evo headlights that they recently came out with as well. That's going to be their brightest option that they offer. So this is going to be a great test all around. So the primary metric we're going to use to test all of these headlights is Luxx. Luxx is a measurement of lumens divided by square meters. So essentially, where lumens is just a complete measurement of the total light output of a light source, Luxx is going to take into account how that light is aimed, which makes it more useful for headlights because obviously you don't just need a flood pattern of light everywhere with your headlights. You want it focused and aimed down the road where it's doing you good and you can see. And also when the light is aimed, it's not at oncoming traffic and it's not blinding other people on the road as well. We'll also take into account how the beam pattern looks on these headlights as well. Because Luxx is a measurement at just one point, it doesn't fully take into account how effective headlight is because a really intense spot beam that's very narrow and small might read high in Luxx, but it won't be as useful for a headlight. So we're going to go through, we're going to have our camera settings locked for all of the testing so you can get a good idea of how all the different beam patterns look compared to each other. And that's going to allow us to do the most fair test possible between all of these options without a $50,000+ piece of equipment. We also have to mention a couple important things with these tests. First, the camera settings will be locked for the entire test to provide as reliable footage of the headlight beams as possible. Pictures of any of these lights elsewhere may make them appear dimmer or brighter depending on the settings and environment. So take all pictures with a grain of salt. It's very easy to manipulate photos of lighting. It's also important to note that external factors like the amount of ambient lighting, street lights, lights on buildings, etc., and even the amount of cloud cover can affect Luxx readings. So doing the test in the same environment is the only way to reliably compare them with each other. It's also important to note that light intensity falls off over distance. So the farther you are away from the light source, the lower the Luxx reading will be. All of our tests will be done at the same distance, 50 feet, on a wall, so all of these test results can be compared together reliably. Finally, each light will be given 12 volts and will be able to draw as much power as it needs to operate at full capacity. The last thing that we're going to take into account is price. Now, price is obviously important. You have something as cheap as like $20 to $30 for a set of these LED bulbs, up into $1,800, $1,900 depending on the vehicle for the Morimoto XB Evo headlights. So there's a huge price range here, and as we go through and test, we're going to put on the screen some different information about the price. With a lot of the components that we offer here at TEQ, a lot of these are going to be available in multiple vehicles that we offer. So whereas a Sequoia headlight might be $500 with these projectors, something like a third-gen Tacoma headlight that has more cost outside of just the projector, maybe upwards of $700 to $800. So we'll give a range and give a good idea of how much it would really cost to get into a set of TEQ headlights for your vehicle. And we'll do the same with the other manufacturers as well. Put up a good price range on the screen just so you have an idea of how much output you're getting for the money you're spending. So the first headlight we're going to talk about for our baseline is the halogen bulb. Obviously, not a great beam pattern, not great light intensity. Overall, just not a great output down the road. And, if you're trying to drive safely at night, this is probably not cutting it for you. So this is our baseline. It reached a max Luxx of 54.8. So it's all right. Keep that number in mind, though, as we go through the rest of the headlights. And we can use that number to compare light intensity off of this halogen bulb. Next, just for demonstration, we've got our LED bulb. Obviously, this beam pattern is not great either. It's super condensed. There is a lot of glare if you look at the headlight from the opposite side as you would from oncoming traffic. It did reach a max Luxx of 160, so roughly 3 times brighter than the halogen. But if you compare it to the halogen bulb's beam pattern, the halogen bulb was a lot more usable, relatively speaking. It was wider, whereas the LED bulb is very condensed. So not a great option all around, but had to include it just to demonstrate that you shouldn't put an LED bulb in your reflector headlight. Now we get into some options that you can actually safely use on the road. So this is the Colite projector bulb. It's the small little projector that you take the reflector piece on the inside of your headlight out, and it acts as a little projector you can install without opening the headlight. Cool concept, but with only a 1-inch lens on that projector, the output isn't great. It's not very wide. It's not very intense. So it only reached a max Luxx of 72.8, which is only roughly 18 Luxx more than the halogen bulb. So not great intensity. It looks a little bit brighter because it is white light compared to that warm white. But great, not a great option all around. And we can definitely do better than this. But for $60, it's not a terrible option. All right, now it's time to get into some higher quality options. So first, we've got the Alpharexx Luxx series headlights. These were pretty solid. Not great width on the beam pattern, but the hotspot is pretty bright. And for, somewhere between $625 to $1,200 a set of headlights, the output is not terrible. It's definitely a better value at $625 than it is at $1,200. But still a definite improvement over stock headlights. Roughly 5 times as brighter so in peak brightness. It's got a good beam pattern, a good cutoff, so you're not going to be able to you're not blinding everybody. So overall, a solid option, not the brightest out there, and for the money, it's an all right value, depending on which vehicle you have and what the pricing looks like for that vehicle. Next, we have our first relative disappointment of the test. We have the Alpharexx Nova Series headlights. These have decent intensity, 303 lux, but only roughly 30 lux more than their Luxx series headlights. And for the price point, pretty tough sell if you're just taking into account the light output. Per vehicle, roughly twice as expensive as the Luxx series headlights. So these range somewhere between $1,000 to $2,000, depending on your vehicle. But while it has decent intensity for the portion that is lit, the width of the beam is pretty sad and could definitely use some work. And for the price point, it's hard to put these high up on the list, given the shortcomings of the light output. Now, these do offer some other features on top of the Luxx series headlights, like a startup sequence and whatnot. But for the purpose of this test, we're looking at solely light output. So thumbs down on this one, unfortunately. Next, we have the Baja Designs LP6 DOTs. These were a cool idea. In execution, not a great headlight. At only 116 lux for $750 for a pair. Just not great numbers there. The beam pattern does have some decent width to it, but it's just not nearly as bright as other comparably priced options. So it's a pretty tough sell at $750 for these. They look cool. It's a great idea. Just not a great headlight. Now we have the TEQ BiLED projectors. These came in at 442 lux, and we've also engineered these to have a little bit of a wider beam pattern, a little bit of a wider hotspot as well. So you do get a little bit more width and better illumination. Oftentimes LEDs are known for being pretty narrow, so we made sure that we wanted to have a good amount of width in this beam pattern so you still do get light in the periphery while you're driving, so you can catch those deer and other things. And we think for somewhere between $550 and $800 for the vehicles that we offer these on, we think it provides a pretty strong value for our customers. So we were happy with these findings and solid output numbers, right in where we expected those to come in, and just reaffirms our belief in the value that we provide to our customers with these projectors. Now we're moving on to the quad TEQ BiLED projectors. So these use 2 TEQ BiLED projectors per headlight. These are only available for some vehicles that have a factory low and high beam separate from each other, where you can put in a projector in each spot. Obviously, very bright, 579.9 lux, which is the highest reading of the test. These are on the more expensive side, at around $1,000 to $1,500, depending on the vehicle that you are getting these for. But the output does back up the price. The brightest headlights on the market pretty much right here. So if you're looking for the most light output possible, this is the direction to go if your vehicle supports it. I will say with the Luxx numbers, the higher up you get, the less difference that you see. If you compare these to just a single BiLED projector, there's definitely differences. You do see more width with the quads, and you see more intensity within the beam but the actual difference on road is not as drastic as going from something like 50 lux to 250 lux as going from 250 lux to 500 lux. At the lower end of the spectrum, a 100 increase in lux provides a lot more usable light output than going from 4 to 500 lux. So there's definite benefits for these. They're super bright, but it's marginal gains once you get to this level of brightness. So, if these aren't in your price range, it's not the end of the world. You can still see great with just a single pair of TEQ BiLED projectors. Or if your vehicle doesn't offer the ability to run quad projectors, then, you will be just fine with a single pair of projectors. Next up, we have the TEQ Tri-Pro 3-color LED projectors. So these projectors will change between cool white, yellow, and warm white as a light color depending on which setting you want to have it on. So for the cool white, the Luxx reading was 274. These do have a little bit more width to them than the TEQ BiLEDs. So the TEQ BiLEDs are already a little bit wider in the spectrum of LEDs. These add a little bit more width to them, but they're still bright, still provide good output. But you do have a little bit of performance loss trying to have 3 different LED chips in there to run the different functions. So when we get to the warm white, that uses a combination of the yellow and the white, the light chips. So that one puts out 304.5 lux. So a little bit brighter, a little bit more intensity using both of those chips. We didn't do readings on the yellow because the yellow is mainly for inclement weather like heavy rain, snow, sleet, fog, because that yellow light reflects back at you less and will make it easier to see in those types of conditions. But for your everyday driving, you'll want to use one of the white functions, either cool or warm, depending on your preference. But both provide a solid performance increase. And these range from $650 to $900 a pair. They're a $100 upgrade over our standard projectors. So if you are looking for a little bit more utility out of the headlights, these could be a solid option for you as well. So the last headlights we have to test are the Morimoto XB Evo LED headlights. These are the new Morimoto top-of-the-line headlights, and they have a lot of other cool features along with some pretty solid light output. These definitely are on the higher end. The cheapest set is around $1,650, and they go up to $2,000 or so, depending on your vehicle. So this beam pattern is a little odd, but it definitely has a lot of width to it, which is very nice. And it does have a pretty bright hotspot, which is also nice. So these are definitely some solid headlights. Whether they're worth the price tag to you or not is something we can't determine. But light output wise, it's definitely a solid buy. If you're looking for the best value on just light output alone, these are definitely not it. But at the end of the day, it's still a great headlight from a quality manufacturer. If the other features are worth it to you and you're happy with this level of light output, which is definitely a huge improvement over, factory headlights, go for it. And the quick little bonus, these are our multi-high beam projectors. These are an option for some of our headlights as an add-on in the high beam area. You use these in conjunction with our normal projector high beam, so it's not just this output for high beam, but these are more of a spot beam pattern. They provide a condensed little square of light that's aimed down the road, so it gives you a little bit extra distance on your high beams. So these might be a good add-on if you're looking to get a little bit more distance out of your high beams. But we also offer them in a white or yellow. The filtering on the yellow does take away some of the light output. So the yellow provides good contrast, but the trade-off is you do lose a little bit of output with them. So you can make your decision off of that. So to finish up, we're going to take a look at this chart that is comparing the different options that we tested, their output, price, and the output per dollar. Starting at the top, obviously with the halogen bulbs being so cheap, you get a decent output per dollar number. But you got to take that into context with the fact that a Luxx output of 54 is very low and not great for actual vision when you're driving. Same thing with the Colite projector bulb. That one had a little bit more output and a little bit better lux per dollar number, but again, it's just pretty dim and overall isn't going to provide great visibility with that low of output value aside. Anything around 300 lux is going to be a pretty solid option for your headlights. It's going to provide an actual upgrade in visibility. So the Luxx series down, excluding the Baja Designs LP6, are all pretty solid options. And at that point, you can start looking at the value a little bit more, because all of those options are going to provide a solid amount of usable light output. So obviously the Baja Designs LP6 DOT did not come in at a very good number. It's such little light that it's really, for $750, it's just not worth it at all. The Luxx series provides a better value than the Nova series. As we saw in the test, the increase in light output is pretty minimal between the two. And then you're talking about, almost a doubling of price. The value reflects that. The best lux per dollar number came from the TEQ BiLED projectors at 0.8 to 0.63, depending on which vehicle you have, as that ranges from $550 to $800. So that's where those numbers come from. The quad BiLED projectors still had a pretty good value, as did the TEQ Tri-Pro LED projectors. So that's kind of the point of this whole test, is to demonstrate the value that our TEQ products provide. That's not to say, the Alpharexx Luxx are a bad option. As you get on the higher end of things, as we saw, you end up paying for some other features outside of just performance. With the XB Evos and like the Nova series, you get startup sequence. If you upgrade to the higher end headlights from Alpharexx or Morimoto, and you get some other, somewhat unique features. And that's not to say you can't find those elsewhere for a better price. We offer some similar things like startup sequences and sequential turn signals at TEQ Customs. But ultimately, this test is looking at the performance of the lights themselves. And just looking at performance, those higher end options don't tend to provide as great a value for your money as, the Luxx series or a TEQ projector would. So keep that in mind when you're shopping around for headlights. Obviously, looks are important as well, so performance isn't everything, but if you drive a lot at night, being able to see is invaluable and is certainly something that you should take into account. We're big advocates on upgrading your headlights regardless of who you're going with. I would much rather somebody drive around with a set of Alpharexx Luxx series than stick a LED bulb and a reflector headlight. So ultimately, all of these upgrades are going to provide a method of upgrading your headlights that is not going to negatively affect everybody else on the road, provided that you do aim your headlights correctly. That's another big piece of it. Always aim your headlights correctly. We have other videos on YouTube as well on how to aim headlights that we highly advise everybody to look at, regardless of if you have our headlights or not. A lot of the same principles are still going to apply. So please aim your headlights and make sure that everybody else is as safe on the road as you are with your upgraded headlights. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions about the test, any of these products, or are interested in a set of headlights, use any of this contact info below to get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you and work with you on your vehicle. Thank you and have a great day.